So as you can see, that's changed the axes, which we're going to save.
Question.
Yeah, speak up, please.
Yeah.
Sir.
There is some cropping involved. Is that something?
Yeah, I'm going to get to that later,
All
actually.
Right.
Yeah, that's so one way to get rid of that I'm going to tell you right now is using the set clipping to off in like everything that you can think of inside of Matlab.
All right. That's a property of the axis?
It's a I think it's a property of the figure. We can look at it right now.
So
get GCF. So no, I think it's axis. Maybe it's axis. Oh, it's here. Clipping on.
Mm-hmm.
And it might also be a yeah. It's also a property of the figure.
All right.
And it's a property of like everything. And there might be even an option inside of export fig to export things.
Also, I see that sometimes we open the APS and it shows up black and white. I don't know. Is that?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
what's that property?
So that's actually an option you can set in these options with export fig.
Right.
So you can set ops.color is equal to. So for example, here in this later figure, I use the option CMYK.
Good, and that's what we want to do.
Exactly.
General,
so
right?
don't use RGB, use CMYK. But you could set it to a BW to set it in black and white, and that's the default, and that's why you saw it in black and white.
Okay, good.
So actually, that kind of reminds me. Yeah. Okay, that'll be better. And I'll export it again to export in color. Actually, right off the bat, sometimes you export in batches. Like you try something, you open an Illustrator, then you notice something's wrong, so you'll close it, and then instead of having to go to actually open it, you just open recent files and it'll be in the latest one. I mean, obvious, but at the same time, kind of not that obvious when you when you don't know about it. Great. So most plots will export fine using these settings that I've just shown you. However, there's a couple that won't work. Here I've got another plot that should export fine. This is an awesome polar plot, and I can export it in export fine. However, there's a couple of types of plots that really won't work well with export fig, and those are the ones which have transparency. Actually, you'll notice when you open up a file in Illustrator, you'll notice that like something's up basically. So this is the plot. It has transparency. It's a representation of a receptive field, and the opacity corresponds to like the weight of the thing. So if I try to export this with export fig, it's gonna work really badly. So you'll see. Right. So when you actually zoom, you'll see that it's actually a pixel file. You know, Matlab didn't like that. So Matlab can't export EPS with transparency. That's one thing you want to be warned about. But there you do have another option, which is plot to SVG. So plot to SVG. So actually SVG is another vector format outside of EPS, which is often used on the internet. So for example, on Wikipedia, there's a lot of SVG files for certain diagrams and things like that. So you can use this plot to SVG to export it. Again, this is available on MATLAB Central, and you should be able to open it fine. So instead of this mess that we had before, look at this thing, how gorgeous that is. So plot to SVG supports transparency. Sometimes it works well with 3D plots. So you can mess around with it, but the only thing though is that it tends to mess up the sizes of the axes and things like that. So that's why I had to make these axes here so fat, right? As you can see. So that's kind of unfortunate, but otherwise it really works nicely. Now another thing that you would want to do is export equations. So let's say that you have some program which you use to show equations. This is the it's like a binomial equation that's built into Word, and you want to export that to use it inside of your Illustrator file. So you're going to, since there's no like real option inside of Word to do that, to export like in a vector format, you use print, right? And then you're going to use your favorite PDF writer. So here I'm going to use Qt PDF, but you could use the Adobe PDF writer or whatever, right? So just do OK, and then it'll eventually it'll pop up to ask us where we want to export it to. So I'm going to save it on my desktop and open it in Illustrator. Now you see it tells us, oh, we can't find the fonts. Dang. And it'll give you this big old mess. You see that? Little X's everywhere. So this is one of the funky things you really have to be aware of when you print with EPS, or actually when you print with PDF. You'll have to set the properties of your printer to include the outlines of the fonts that you're using, so that it'll look correctly once you import into Illustrator. So in the Qt PDF writer options here, I'm setting, like, this is in the advanced like document options, and it's completely TrueType font download option, and you have to set it to outline. You really have to know it, but it's the way it is. So you know.
That's a property of Qt PDF.
That's the property of the PDF software, the PDF printer, the virtual PDF printer.
There is this thing called encapsulation of fonts in PDF files, essentially.
Yeah,
so that would work as well, you think? Or
yeah, that's basically the same thing.
Same thing, yeah.
Anyways, if you see like font or type, and you see something that has to do with outline, just select outline, it should work. There's probably a similar option in the Adobe program. So let's save it again. Now, once I close this, and open it again. Aha! Magic! See how nice that is? That's not a bitmap.
So you can resize it and
yeah, exactly.
Oh,
yeah, so that's a trick. So that